All right, let's go. Number 10. The Ica Stones. In 1966, a Peruvian physician named Javier Cabrera Darquea received an unusual birthday gift from a local farmer. It was a small engraved stone depicting what appeared to be an extinct fish. Over the following decades, Cabrera would accumulate more than 15,000 of these stones, pulled from the arid region around the town of Ica in southern Peru. The engravings covered an impossible range of subjects: humans performing surgery on other humans, astronomers observing celestial bodies through instruments, and most disturbingly, people interacting with dinosaurs, creatures that should have been extinct 65 million years before any human could have witnessed them. The stones range in size, from pebbles to boulders, weighing hundreds of pounds. The engravings are cut into andesite, a volcanic rock covered in a natural oxidation patina that takes centuries to form. On many specimens, the carved grooves show the same weathering as the surrounding surface, suggesting the engravings themselves are genuinely ancient. Mainstream archaeology dismissed the collection as an elaborate hoax, and in 1975, a local farmer named Basilio Ushuya confessed to carving some of them himself. The case appeared closed. But here's where the standard explanation falls apart. Ushuya later recanted his confession, claiming he had only said so to avoid prosecution for selling pre-Columbian artifacts. Independent researchers who examined the collection found that the sheer volume, an estimated 50,000 stones scattered across museums, private collections, and the Cabrera archive in Ica, would require a single forger to produce multiple stones per day for over a century. No workshop, no tools, and no economic infrastructure capable of that production has ever been found. The depictions themselves create a deeper problem. Certain stones show theropod dinosaurs with anatomical features, including skin textures and dorsal structures, that were not scientifically understood until decades after the stones first appeared in private collections. Other stones depict surgical procedures, including what appears to be an organ transplant and a cesarean section, rendered with anatomical accuracy that would require medical knowledge unavailable to any hoaxer in the 1960s. Some carvings show astronomical observations involving telescopic instruments and star patterns that match specific celestial configurations. The truly unsettling aspect is not whether individual stones were forged. The truly unsettling aspect is that the entire collection is treated as unworthy of serious investigation. No radiocarbon analysis of the patina, no mineralogical study of the tool marks, no comprehensive catalog by a recognized institution. The stones exist in a kind of academic purgatory, dismissed without examination, preserved without study. Whatever they are, whether genuine artifacts from a lost civilization or the greatest archaeological fraud in history, they remain one of the largest unclassified collections of ancient artifacts on Earth. Dr. Cabrera died in 2001, and his museum in Ica still displays thousands of the stones. Tourists pass through. Photographs are taken, and the engravings, showing humans standing beside creatures that should not have existed, continue to weather in the Peruvian sun, untouched by the scientific rigor that might finally answer what they are. Number 9. The Nampa figurine. On August 11th, 1889, a well drilling crew operating near the town of Nampa in southwestern Idaho was pulling core samples from a depth of approximately 300 feet. The geological column they were drilling through had been mapped by state geologists, and the strata at that depth were dated to the Pleistocene boundary, roughly 2 million years old. What emerged from the drill core that day has been the subject of scientific discomfort ever since. Embedded in the sample was a small clay figurine, approximately 1.5 inches tall, depicting a human form. So the figurine was discovered by the drilling crew and turned over to Charles F. Adams, a mining official who had been supervising the operation. Adams documented the find immediately, recording the depth, the stratigraphic context, and the condition of the artifact. The figurine was later examined by Professor Albert A. Wright of Oberlin College, and by the geologist G. F. Wright, who published findings on the object in 1890. Both men concluded that the figurine showed no signs of having been recently introduced into the core sample. The surrounding clay matrix was undisturbed. The drilling process had been documented throughout. But here's where conventional archaeology fails. At 300 feet of depth in that specific geological formation, the strata had not been exposed to the surface for approximately 2 million years. Human beings, according to every accepted evolutionary timeline, did not exist 2 million years ago. Homo habilis, our earliest tool-using ancestor, was just emerging in East Africa. The ability to sculpt a humanoid figurine with identifiable anatomical features, arms, legs, a torso, the suggestion of a face, would not appear in the archaeological record for another 1.95 million years. The figurine itself adds to the mystery. It is not a crude or accidental formation. The proportions are deliberate. The surface shows evidence of having been shaped by hand. Iron oxide stains cover the object in a pattern consistent with prolonged burial in the surrounding strata, not recent contamination. Chemical analysis conducted in the late 19th century found the figurine's composition matched the clay of the drill core, suggesting it had been manufactured from local material at some point in the deep past. Mainstream science has never produced a satisfying explanation. The standard dismissals fall into 3 categories. The first is that the figurine was somehow introduced into the core during drilling, either accidentally or as a hoax. But the drilling method used in 1889, a cable tool system that pulverized material as it descended, makes the introduction of an intact artifact from above mechanically implausible. The second dismissal is that the strata were misdated, but subsequent geological surveys have confirmed the original age estimates. The third is that the figurine is simply inexplicable and therefore not worth examining further. The truly disturbing aspect is what the artifact represents if authentic. Either human beings, or something anatomically similar to human beings, existed in North America 2 million years ago, predating every accepted model of human migration and evolution. Or something else was making humanoid figurines before humans existed. The Nampa figurine currently resides in the collection of the Idaho State Historical Society, where it is rarely displayed. It remains, more than 130 years after its discovery, an object that should not exist in a layer of Earth that should not contain it. Number 8. The Gobekli Tepe rewrite. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt was surveying a hilltop in southeastern Turkey called Gobekli Tepe, meaning Potbelly Hill in Turkish. The site had been noted in a 1963 survey as a probable medieval cemetery and dismissed. Schmidt recognized something the earlier team had missed. The hilltop was not natural. It was a mound of accumulated construction debris, covering something far older than any medieval grave. Excavations began in 1995, and what emerged from the soil over the following decades rewrote the timeline of human civilization. Gobekli Tepe consists of at least 20 circular stone enclosures, each containing massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in concentric patterns. The pillars stand up to 18 feet tall and weigh as much as 16 tons. They are carved with elaborate reliefs depicting animals, abstract symbols, and what appear to be stylized human figures. The construction required quarrying, transporting, and erecting stones of enormous weight, coordinating a labor force of potentially hundreds of people, and possessing a level of engineering knowledge far beyond anything previously attributed to the people of that era. The era itself is the problem. Radiocarbon dating of the oldest enclosures places their construction at approximately 9,600 BCE, making Gobekli Tepe at least 11,600 years old. This predates Stonehenge by roughly 6,000 years. It predates the Egyptian pyramids by over 7,000 years. It predates the invention of pottery, the development of metallurgy, the establishment of cities, and, most critically, the emergence of agriculture. The people who built Gobekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers. They had no domesticated crops. They had no permanent settlements. They had no written language, no wheel, no draft animals. But here's where the standard model of human development collapses. The construction of Gobekli Tepe required surplus labor, organized social hierarchy, and the ability to feed a large workforce over years or decades. These are precisely the conditions that agriculture was supposed to create. For nearly a century, archaeology taught that humans developed farming, which produced food surplus, which allowed for permanent settlements, which enabled monumental architecture. Gobekli Tepe reverses that entire sequence. The monument came first. The religious or ceremonial impulse that drove its construction may have been what forced the agricultural revolution, not the other way around. The deeper mystery involves the later stages of the site. Around 8000 BCE, approximately 1,600 years after construction began, the builders did something inexplicable. They deliberately buried Gobekli Tepe. They filled the enclosures with tons of carefully deposited rubble, covering the pillars, sealing the site, and transforming a sacred complex into an artificial hill. The burial was not gradual. It was intentional, organized, and systematic. Whatever Gobekli Tepe was, the people who built it eventually decided it needed to be hidden. The reasons remain unknown. Some archaeologists propose ritual closure, a deliberate entombment of a sacred space at the end of its ceremonial lifespan. Others suggest the burial was protective, concealing something the builders did not want discovered by future generations. The fact that the site survived in near-perfect condition for 11 millennia is directly because of this burial. The pillars were not exposed to weathering, vandalism, or reuse. They waited underground, preserved by the people who hid them. The truly unsettling aspect of Gobekli Tepe is what it implies about the deeper past. If hunter-gatherers with no agriculture, no cities, and no writing could construct a monument of this scale, the history of human civilization is not what we have been told. Something existed before the official beginning, and whoever built Gobekli Tepe understood it well enough to know it needed to be buried. Number 7. The Shigir Idol. In 1890, gold miners working in a peat bog near the Ural Mountains, approximately 60 miles north of the Russian city of Yekaterinburg, pulled something unexpected from the waterlogged soil. It was a wooden statue, carved from a single larch trunk, standing approximately 17 feet tall in its original configuration. The peat had preserved the wood in an almost perfect state, creating conditions similar to those that preserve bog bodies in northern Europe. The statue was covered in carved symbols, geometric patterns, and stylized human faces arranged along its length. The artifact was cataloged, transported to the Sverdlovsk Regional Museum of History, and largely forgotten for most of the 20th century. Initial estimates placed its age at a few thousand years old, making it an interesting but unexceptional example of prehistoric art. Then, in 1997, a radiocarbon analysis suggested the statue was approximately 9,500 years old. The finding was disputed. The dating methods were improved. In 2014, a team led by Thomas Terberger conducted accelerator mass spectrometry testing on the innermost layers of the wood. The result was not what anyone expected. The Shigir idol is approximately 12,500 years old. This makes it more than twice as old as the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is older than the invention of agriculture in the Fertile Crescent. It is older than the first known pottery. It is older than Gobekli Tepe. When the statue was carved, the last ice age had barely ended. Europe and Asia were still emerging from glacial conditions. The people who made the Shigir idol were Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, and according to every accepted model, they should not have been capable of producing complex, symbolic art of this sophistication. But here's where the statue becomes genuinely disturbing. The carvings covering its surface are not simple decorations. They are a coded system. Geometric zigzags, horizontal lines, vertical marks, and stylized faces are arranged in patterns that researchers believe represent a form of symbolic communication. Some investigators have proposed the markings constitute a proto-writing system, an attempt to encode information visually, predating every known form of written language by at least 7,000 years. The carvings may record a creation myth, a migration route, a map of a cosmology, or something else entirely. Nobody knows. Nobody can read them. The implications are profound. Written language is considered one of the defining markers of civilization, a technology that emerged in Sumer around 3200 BCE, and in parallel in Egypt and China shortly after. The Shigir idol suggests that the impulse to encode abstract information into visual symbols existed more than 9 millennia before the first known writing system. Whoever carved the idol possessed a conceptual vocabulary we cannot access, a way of encoding meaning that died with them and left no descendant traditions we can recognize. The statue's current condition adds another layer of mystery. The upper sections were lost at some point during the 20th century, possibly during the Russian Civil War, and only early photographs preserve what those sections contained. The remaining portions continue to reveal new details as imaging technology improves. Infrared and laser scanning have identified carvings that were invisible to the naked eye. The idol is still being deciphered, 130 years after its discovery, and the gap between what it contains and what we can understand only grows wider with each new analysis. The truly haunting aspect is what the Shigir idol represents. It is not a single artifact from an isolated culture. It is a message from a civilization we know nothing about, sent forward through 12,500 years of peat preservation, speaking in a language that has no survivors. The carvings remain visible. The meaning remains lost. And every year, the wood grows a little more brittle, and the last witness to something profound continues its slow, silent decay in a museum in the Urals. Number 6. The Derinkuyu Underground City. In 1963, a resident of the town of Derinkuyu in the Cappadocia region of central Turkey was renovating his home. During the work, a wall in his basement was demolished, revealing an opening behind it. What lay beyond the opening would turn out to be one of the largest and most sophisticated subterranean constructions ever discovered. The homeowner had accidentally broken into the upper level of an 18-story underground city carved directly into volcanic tuff, capable of housing an estimated 20,000 people along with their livestock, food stores, and manufacturing facilities. The city descends approximately 280 feet below the surface. It includes ventilation shafts that provide fresh air to every level, stables for animals on the upper floors, kitchens with specialized stone ovens, communal dining halls, churches carved from the living rock, a school with raised seating, wineries with presses and storage cisterns, and dozens of living quarters arranged along corridors connected by narrow passages and stairways. The design allows for complete self-sufficiency. With the entrances sealed, the inhabitants could survive underground for months. The defensive features are particularly striking. Each level could be sealed from the one above by massive stone discs, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, which could be rolled into place to block passages. The discs have a central hole, interpreted by some researchers as a sighting port or an arrow slit, allowing defenders to fire through the sealed barrier. The passages are deliberately narrow, forcing any attacker to move single file, and feature sudden drops, false corridors, and ambush points at regular intervals. Every feature of Derinkuyu's architecture suggests it was built to hide its inhabitants from an external threat. But here's where the history becomes unclear. The construction of Derinkuyu has been attributed to various historical populations, including the Phrygians in the 8th to 7th centuries BCE, the early Christians fleeing Roman persecution, and Byzantine communities hiding from Arab raids during the medieval period. Each of these populations occupied the city at different times and expanded it for their own purposes, but none of them built the original core. The volcanic tuff of Cappadocia is soft when freshly quarried, but hardens on exposure to air. The oldest sections of Derinkuyu show geological aging consistent with excavation thousands of years before any of the documented occupants arrived. The mystery deepens when the scale of the original construction is considered. Derinkuyu is not an isolated site. It is connected by a tunnel approximately 5 miles long to another underground city at Makli, and the broader Cappadocia region contains at least 200 additional subterranean complexes of varying sizes. The excavation of these structures required the removal of millions of tons of stone. No substantial deposits of the excavated material have ever been identified on the surface. Where the spoil went remains unknown. The truly unsettling aspect is what the city was originally designed to withstand. Small-scale raids do not require 18 stories of underground infrastructure. Short-term hiding does not require wineries and schools. Derinkuyu was built for long-term occupation under sustained siege, potentially for years. The threat the builders feared was not a passing army. It was something that made the surface of the world uninhabitable. Cappadocia's climate is not extreme. No known natural disaster of the period required this kind of response. No documented military force of the ancient world could have justified this scale of construction. Who the original builders were hiding from remains unknown. The Turkish Ministry of Culture officially opened Derinkuyu to tourism in 1969, and visitors now descend through only 8 of the 18 levels. The lower floors remain closed, partly for safety, partly because their full extent has never been completely mapped. The city waits beneath the Cappadocian plains, its entrances rediscovered, its purpose unexplained, and somewhere in its deepest chambers, the answer to what drove 20,000 people underground sits in darkness, uncatalogued and untouched. Number 5. The Baigong Pipes. In 2002, a team of Chinese researchers traveled to a remote area of Qinghai Province in northwestern China to investigate reports of an unusual formation near Mount Baigong. The site sits in a salt flat basin at the edge of the Kaidam Depression, approximately 25 miles southwest of the city of Dalinga. The local Mongolian and Tibetan populations had known of the formation for generations, but its existence only reached mainstream Chinese scientific circles in the late 1990s, when journalists began reporting on what appeared to be a network of metal pipes embedded in the mountain itself. The formation consists of 3 triangular cave openings cut into the face of Mount Baigong. Inside the caves and on the surrounding terrain, researchers documented hundreds of pipe-shaped objects ranging from approximately 4 inches in diameter down to pipes so small they could barely be seen with the naked eye. The pipes are rust-colored, composed primarily of iron oxide, and embedded in the surrounding rock in a pattern that does not match any known natural geological process. Some of the pipes extend down into the nearby saltwater lake. Others run horizontally through the sedimentary strata. The arrangement is systematic, not random. Samples were collected and analyzed by the Beijing Institute of Geology in 2003. The chemical composition included approximately 30% ferric oxide, along with significant quantities of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. But roughly 8% of the material could not be identified. The unidentified content did not match any known mineral compound or industrial alloy. The analyzing geologist, Liu Shaolin, publicly acknowledged that the composition was strange and that the mystery had not been resolved. But here's where the conventional explanations fail. The rock formation in which the pipes are embedded has been geologically dated to approximately 150 million years old. Human beings did not exist 150 million years ago. The Jurassic period was still underway. Dinosaurs dominated the terrestrial ecosystem. The ability to smelt iron shape metal into hollow cylinders, and install them in geological strata would not appear for approximately 149.9 million years after the rock formation hardened. Even the most generous revisions to human prehistory cannot account for the presence of manufactured metal pipes in Jurassic-era stone. Mainstream geology has proposed natural explanations. The most commonly cited is that the pipes are fossilized tree roots. Under specific conditions, organic material buried in iron-rich sediment can be replaced by iron compounds through a process called petogenesis, creating hollow, tube-like structures that superficially resemble pipes. This explanation has been tested, and studies published in 2003 identified plant material within some of the Baigong formations, supporting the fossilized root hypothesis. For many researchers, the case is closed. But the fossilized root explanation does not account for everything. The pipes show evidence of internal uniformity, consistent wall thickness, and geometric alignment that natural processes rarely produce. Some of the pipes extend in straight lines for considerable distances without branching, which is anatomically inconsistent with tree root systems. And the unidentified 8% of the chemical composition has never been explained by the organic replacement theory. Natural fossilization does not produce compounds unknown to mineralogy. The truly unsettling aspect is the location. Qinghai Province has historically been one of the most thinly populated regions of China, with no recorded civilization capable of metallurgy in the deep prehistoric period. The nearest known metalworking cultures are thousands of miles away and thousands of years too recent. Whether the Baigong pipes are exotic fossils, an unexplained natural phenomenon, or the remains of something manufactured before conventional human history began, they have been largely removed from active scientific discussion. The site is now a tourist attraction. The pipes remain in the rock, and the 8% of their composition that nobody can identify continues to sit in a laboratory catalog in Beijing, unresolved. Number 4. The Dropa Stones. In 1938, a Chinese archaeologist named Qipu Te was reportedly leading an expedition through the Bayan Har mountain range on the border between China and Tibet when his team discovered a series of caves containing human remains of unusual proportions. The skeletons were described as short in stature, with disproportionately large skulls. Alongside the remains, the expedition allegedly recovered 716 stone discs, each approximately 9 inches in diameter, with a circular hole in the center and a spiral groove running from the edge to the center on both sides. The grooves contained what appeared to be microscopic carved symbols, etched into the stone with a precision that should not have been possible with the tools available to any known prehistoric culture. The story of the Dropa Stones, as they came to be called, has become one of the most contested narratives in the history of unexplained archaeology. According to the account that circulated through Soviet and Western fringe publications in the 1960s, the discs were studied by a researcher named Tsum Umnui at the Beijing Academy for Prehistoric Research. After more than 2 decades of analysis, Tsum Umnui allegedly published a paper in 1962 claiming to have partially deciphered the spiral inscriptions. The translation, and according to the story, described a group of beings called the Dropa who had crashed in the mountains approximately 12,000 years earlier and been unable to leave. The academic reaction was catastrophic. Tsum Umnui's paper was reportedly suppressed. He emigrated to Japan, where he died shortly afterward. The discs were said to have been transferred to various institutions for further study, including the Banpo Museum in Xi'an, and then, at some point during the 1970s or early 1980s, they disappeared from museum records entirely. But here's where the investigation becomes genuinely impossible. Every attempt to verify the Dropa Stones narrative has produced contradictions. There is no record of a Chinese archaeologist named Qipu Te in any academic institution of the relevant period. The Beijing Academy for Prehistoric Research does not appear in any documented list of Chinese scientific bodies. The name Tsumumnui does not correspond to any phonetic pattern in Mandarin or any Chinese regional dialect. The original research papers have never been located. The photographs that circulated in Western publications in the 1960s showed discs that, when examined later, turned out to be bi-discs, a well-documented category of Chinese jade artifacts dating to the Neolithic period, but containing no spiral grooves or mysterious inscriptions. The case appeared to be a complete hoax. Then, in 1974, an Austrian engineer named Ernst Wegerer visited the Banpo Museum and photographed 2 stone discs on display that he claimed matched the Dropa descriptions. His photographs showed objects that did appear to have central holes and spiral marking patterns. When Wegerer attempted to return to the museum in later years, the discs were gone. Museum staff denied they had ever existed. The director who had been in charge during Wegerer's visit had been removed from his position, and no record of the artifacts remained in the museum's catalog. The truly unsettling aspect is not whether the Dropa stones were real. The truly unsettling aspect is what the pattern of the story reveals. Every physical piece of evidence has been removed, destroyed, or discredited. Every researcher associated with the discovery has either vanished from the historical record or been exposed as fabricated. And yet the narrative persists across multiple independent sources, in multiple languages, and with enough internal consistency that distinguishing fabrication from suppression has become impossible. Whatever the Dropa stones were, or were claimed to be, the current state of the evidence is that they cannot be studied. They exist only in secondhand photographs, contested narratives, and the memories of researchers who may or may not have existed. A reader examining the available sources today faces a choice. Either one of the most elaborate archaeological hoaxes of the 20th century was constructed with remarkable precision and then allowed to fade, or a genuine discovery was systematically erased from public knowledge. Both possibilities are disturbing, and no third option explains the pattern. Number 3. The Gabon nuclear reactor. In 1972, a French physicist named Francis Perrin was conducting routine uranium analysis at the Pierre-Latte Uranium Enrichment Facility in southern France. The uranium being processed had been extracted from a mine in the Oklo region of Gabon in West Africa and shipped to France for refinement. Perrin's analysis produced an impossible result. The uranium ore from Oklo contained a lower concentration of the isotope uranium-235 than any natural uranium sample should contain. Every uranium deposit on Earth, from every continent, from every geological period, contains uranium-235 at a consistent ratio of approximately 0.7 to 0%. The Oklo samples showed 0.717%. The difference was tiny. The implications were staggering. Uranium-235 is the isotope that can sustain nuclear fission. In natural uranium, it exists as a minority component, diluted by the much more common uranium-238. When the ratio drops below normal, it means that some of the uranium-235 has been consumed, either by nuclear weapons, by artificial reactors, or by some process that releases the energy of fission. The Oklo deposit had lost uranium-235. The question was how? Investigation of the Oklo mine eventually produced an answer that rewrote the history of nuclear physics. The deposit contained 16 distinct sites where natural nuclear fission reactions had occurred underground. The reactions had begun approximately 1.7 billion years ago during the Paleo-Proterozoic era and had continued intermittently for an estimated 300,000 years before fuel consumption brought them to a halt. The Oklo reactor had generated an average thermal power of approximately 100 kilowatts and had converted several tons of uranium-235 into fission products over its operational lifetime. The geological conditions required for the reaction were extraordinarily specific. The uranium had to be concentrated above a critical threshold. Groundwater had to flow through the deposit in sufficient quantities to act as a neutron moderator. The surrounding geology had to contain materials that would not absorb neutrons and stop the chain reaction. The timing had to be right, because uranium-235 decays faster than uranium-238. The natural concentration of uranium-235 was higher 1.7 billion years ago than it is today, providing enough fissile material to sustain criticality. When all of these factors had to align simultaneously in a single geological formation, and they did, and a natural reactor operated for 300,000 years beneath what is now Gabon. But here's where the discovery becomes genuinely disturbing. The Oklo reactor is the only known example of natural nuclear fission anywhere on Earth. Every other uranium deposit that has ever been surveyed shows the normal 0.7 to 0% ratio of uranium-235. No other location has produced the specific combination of factors required. Oklo is either an extraordinary geological coincidence or evidence that natural processes we do not understand were operating in the deep past at a scale that has left almost no trace. The implications extend further. The Oklo reactor contained its own fission products within its geological matrix for 1.7 billion years, essentially solving the problem of nuclear waste containment that modern engineering has not yet solved. The fission byproducts, including plutonium and other transuranic elements, remained locked in the surrounding rock for a period longer than the existence of multicellular life on Earth. Studies of how Oklo achieved this containment have become a major research topic in modern radioactive waste disposal, and the site continues to inform engineering approaches to long-term nuclear storage. The truly unsettling aspect of Oklo is what it suggests about the limits of our understanding. For decades before 1972, nuclear physicists insisted that natural fission reactors were impossible. The conditions were too specific, the concentrations too high, the timing too precise. Then one was found, and the theoretical framework had to be rewritten. If a natural reactor operated for 300,000 years during the Proterozoic, what else occurred in the deep past that left no surviving evidence? The Oklo deposit was discovered only because a 0.003% isotope discrepancy caught the attention of a single physicist in 1972. Smaller anomalies, older events, stranger processes may have happened across the 4.5 billion year history of this planet, and every one of them would look like an ordinary rock formation today. Number 2. The Bosnian Pyramid Complex. In April 2005, a Bosnian-American businessman named Semir Osmanagic visited the town of Visoko in central Bosnia and Herzegovina, approximately 20 miles northwest of Sarajevo. A local hill known as Visočica had long been recognized by residents as having an unusually regular shape. Osmanagic, who had studied pre-Columbian pyramids in Central and South America, claimed that the hill was not a natural formation. He argued that Visočica was an artificial pyramid, potentially the largest pyramid on Earth, and that several other hills in the surrounding valley formed a complex of pyramid structures connected by underground tunnels. The scale of the claim is extraordinary. Visočica rises approximately 720 feet above the valley floor, compared to the Great Pyramid of Giza at 481 feet. The hill has 4 distinct sides that Osmanagic's team measured as oriented precisely to the cardinal directions. The slopes form approximately equal triangular faces. Core samples taken from the surface layers revealed what Osmanagic identified as shaped stone blocks, joined with a binding material he described as an ancient form of concrete. If his interpretation is correct, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, as he named it, would be older, larger, and more geometrically precise than any known pyramid in the archaeological record. The response from mainstream archaeology was immediate and severe. The European Association of Archaeologists issued a public statement in 2006, signed by dozens of academics, condemning the Bosnian pyramid claims as a hoax and a threat to the genuine archaeological heritage of the region. Geological surveys conducted by independent researchers identified Visočica as a flat iron a natural hill formation produced by differential erosion of tilted sedimentary rock layers. The shaped blocks, according to mainstream analysis, were natural breccia formations. The binding material was interpreted as mineralized sediment. The geometric regularity was dismissed as perceptual bias. But here's where the standard dismissal becomes problematic. Multiple independent measurement teams have confirmed certain anomalous characteristics of the site that the erosion hypothesis does not fully explain. The alignment of the hill faces with cardinal directions is measurable and accurate within fractions of a degree. Thermal imaging surveys conducted in 2012 and 2013 documented heat distribution patterns on the slopes that did not match surrounding natural hills. Electromagnetic measurements detected anomalous signal patterns at the summit, including what investigators described as a vertical electromagnetic beam of unknown origin. These findings were published in contested venues and have not been independently reproduced in peer-reviewed journals. The most genuinely unexplained aspect of the Visoko site is not the pyramids themselves. It is the tunnel network. Beneath the town of Visoko, a system of underground passages, designated the Ravne Tunnel Complex, has been partially excavated since 2006. The tunnels are undeniably artificial. Large stone blocks within the passages show tool marks. Some of the blocks are inscribed with symbols that have been dated by various methods to between 12,000 and 30,000 years old. The tunnels extend for unknown distances beneath the valley, and their original builders have never been identified. The Ravne tunnels by themselves represent a major archaeological anomaly. No known civilization in the Balkans during the late Paleolithic or Mesolithic period had the capability to construct subterranean infrastructure of this scale. The purpose of the tunnels, the identity of the builders, and their relationship to the surface formations remain unresolved. Mainstream archaeology has largely avoided the site because of its association with the contested pyramid claims, meaning that genuine anomalies within the tunnel system are not being investigated with the resources they would otherwise receive. The truly unsettling aspect of the Bosnian pyramid controversy is what it reveals about the epistemic boundaries of archaeology. Whether or not Visočica is artificial, the decision to treat the entire site as unworthy of serious investigation has left documented anomalies unexamined. The tunnels exist, the symbols exist, the alignments are measurable, and the site sits in a valley in central Bosnia, semi-excavated, partially studied, and officially ignored by the institutions that would otherwise have the authority to resolve the question. Whatever truth the site contains, it is being preserved by neglect. Number 1. The Longyou Caves. In June 1992, a man named Wu Anai, in the village of Xianbeikun in Zhejiang Province, eastern China, drained a small pond on his property using a water pump. The villagers had believed the ponds in the area were bottomless. Wu wanted to prove otherwise. As the water level dropped, an opening appeared at the bottom of the pond. It led into a massive underground chamber. Further investigation revealed that the pond was one of at least 24 such openings in the area, each concealing an artificial cavern of extraordinary size carved directly into solid siltstone bedrock. The Longyou Caves, as the complex came to be known, are among the largest ancient underground constructions ever discovered. Each cavern measures between approximately 6,500 and 32,000 square feet in floor area. The ceilings reach heights of up to 100 feet. The walls slope at consistent angles. The interior surfaces are covered in a parallel pattern of tool marks, carved in straight lines, running diagonally across every visible surface. The pattern is identical from cave to cave. Every square foot of every chamber was shaped by the same method, following the same geometric rule. The volume of stone removed is staggering. Engineers who have surveyed the caves estimate that the original excavation required the removal of approximately 1 million cubic meters of siltstone. Using the labor technologies available in ancient China, the removal of that much material would have required a workforce of thousands operating continuously for years, possibly decades. The excavated stone has never been found. There are no spoil heaps in the surrounding area. There are no embankments, no raised fields, no construction projects that could account for the displacement. 1 million cubic meters of siltstone was removed from the earth, and nobody knows where it went. But here's where the Longyou caves become genuinely impossible. There is no historical record of their construction. Chinese bureaucratic tradition, which extends back over 3,000 years, documented every major public work in exhaustive detail. Canals, walls, palaces, tombs, roads, reservoirs, all of them appear in imperial archives with the names of the officials who commissioned them. The resources allocated, the number of workers conscripted, and the dates of completion. The Longyou caves do not appear in any historical document. No dynasty claimed them. No emperor funded them. No official oversaw their construction. A project that would have consumed the resources of a small kingdom was carried out, completed, and then erased from memory so completely that even the villagers living directly above the caverns did not know they existed. The tool marks themselves have resisted explanation. Modern analysis has documented that the parallel grooves cover every interior surface with perfect consistency, following a diagonal angle that never varies. The marks are approximately 1 centimeter wide, spaced at regular intervals, and run from the top of each wall to the bottom without interruption. Attempts to replicate the pattern using traditional chisels, stone tools, or hand implements have failed. The marks are too uniform. The spacing is too regular. The angle is too consistent. Whatever tool was used to carve the Longyou caves, modern archaeology has not identified it, and modern masons cannot reproduce its output. The caves also contain structural features that serve no obvious practical purpose. Stone pillars rise at regular intervals, apparently carved from the same siltstone as the walls, left in place to support the ceilings. The pillars are shaped identically across multiple caverns. The dimensions are standardized. The design suggests a single architect, a single plan, and a single coordinated construction effort that proceeded across at least 24 separate excavation sites simultaneously. The age of the caves has not been definitively established. Radiocarbon dating is impossible because no organic material has been found within the excavated chambers. Estimates based on the water levels of the ponds that concealed them, the geological formation of the surrounding bedrock, and the weathering of the tool marks range from 2,000 to more than 10,000 years. The most commonly cited date places the construction at approximately 200 BCE during the Qin or early Han dynasty, but this estimate rests on indirect inference rather than direct evidence. The truly unsettling aspect of the Longyou caves is what they imply about the limits of historical record. Ancient China documented almost everything. The construction of the Longyou caves would have been one of the largest civil engineering projects of its era, and it was recorded nowhere. The builders removed 1 million cubic meters of stone, carved 24 massive chambers with a tool nobody has identified, shaped the interiors according to a geometric rule nobody has decoded, and then sealed the caverns beneath water, and left no trace of their identity, their purpose, or their fate. The caves were rediscovered by accident in 1992. They had been waiting in the dark, filled with still water, for an unknown number of centuries. And whatever they were built for, whatever they were meant to contain or conceal or commemorate, the answer remains in the stone, carved in parallel grooves that speak in a language no living person has learned to read. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.